70 countries contact the White House for how to come and negotiate. So, I would say that the negotiations are the result of the massive inflow of inbound calls to come and negotiate. Had nothing to do with the market. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth. President Trump is going to be personally involved in the negotiations, and we will see what our trading partners offer. Many of our trading partners, they have queued up, and they have kept their cool. They have not escalated, and they will get priority in the queue. I think it was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent speaking with CNBC a short while ago, saying the Trump administration is open to negotiating deals to reduce tariffs, while denying the market sell-off has led the White House to alter its approach. Welcome to the fourth hour of Morning Joe at 6 a.m. on the West Coast, 9 a.m. on the East Coast. By the way, that point of view is consistent with what Bessent has said to others. Along with Joe, Jonathan Lemire, and me, we have special correspondent at Vanity Fair and host of the Fast Politics podcast, Molly Jong-Fast. She's an MSNBC political analyst, and New York Times opinion columnist David French joins us as well. So as we listen to what the Treasury Secretary has to say, the futures market is on the rise this morning, with all signs pointing to a higher opening in about half an hour. This comes after 3 straight days of declines, with several top Wall Street leaders now warning of a potential recession. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans has more.
After another chaotic day on Wall Street, America's CEOs are sounding the alarm, warning that the U.S. economy could soon take a big hit after President Trump's sweeping tariff announcement sent markets spinning.
The economy is weakening as we speak. Most CEOs I talk to would say we are probably in a recession right now.
A new CNBC survey showing those concerns are widespread, with 69% of CEOs expecting a recession and 82% expecting resurgent inflation. The Dow swinging 2,600 points Monday, the most ever in a single day, closing down more than 300. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon telling shareholders the situation is one large additional straw on the camel's back. Pershing Square CEO Bill Ackman, a Trump supporter, warning we're heading for a self-induced economic nuclear winter. And Virgin's Richard Branson tweeting yesterday, this is the moment to own up to a colossal mistake and change course. Otherwise, America will face ruin for years to come. But despite those fears, President Trump not backing down.
We're going to get fair deals and good deals with every country. And if we don't, we're going to have nothing to do with them.
Some consumers already rethinking the way they buy.
I take a lot of hand-me-downs, and we also go to the dollar store.
One retail group estimating sneakers made in places like Vietnam could soon cost Americans an additional $50 to $75 more per pair. And now Nintendo announcing a delay of its highly anticipated gaming system.
I'm not spending $600 on a Nintendo Switch 2.
The National Association of Wine Retailers also bracing for fallout, with wines from Europe set to be taxed at 20%.
So let's bring in right now the co-anchor of CNBC Squawk Box and New York Times columnist Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew wrote this morning that these tariffs may be, quote, rewiring the markets. Andrew, of course, yesterday we started seeing toward the end of the day the markets going up, coming down, but recovering, and for the most part, leveling out. Today, of course, stock futures much stronger. And so we can't predict what everybody in that report was saying. Is there going to be a recession? Is there going to be inflation? It does seem, though, at least for today, the markets have found enough of a bottom for now. Again, this could all change tomorrow with what the president does or doesn't say, that it does provide a little bit more political space for the White House to negotiate.
Look, I think what's happening here is a sense that there's going to be some form of a negotiation. Of course, the president says no negotiation, and yet then we just talked to the Treasury Secretary this morning saying there will be a negotiation. Of course, the president hinting maybe there could be negotiations. What does that really look like? I think you have almost different camps talking out of this administration that's confusing the market. You have a Peter Navarro on one side of the situation saying there should be no negotiation. This is all about getting manufacturing back to the United States and creating revenue. Similar Howard Lutnick in that camp. And then you have, the Treasury Secretary and possibly people like Elon Musk saying, that there should be a negotiation and the goal should be to get tariffs down to zero. Of course, all of those things are at odds. And of course, the only true decider in the end is going to be President Trump. You do have a market right now that thinks that there will be a deal. Having said that, I think that the chance of any kind of deal soon is almost impossible. It's very hard to think about how a deal comes together quickly, given how many countries are ultimately going to be involved. This could play out potentially for months. One of the things that the Treasury Secretary said earlier this morning, though, that was fascinating is some of these quote-unquote deals may not be about tariffs at all. Some of them may be about VAT taxes. Some of them could be about providing investment in energy. In Alaska, for example, he was talking about whether South Korea and Japan could get together to help with energy production and exporting energy out of Alaska to create jobs. So all of this could turn into some kind of, different chess pieces. And, then TikTok, another chess piece for China. So I think it's going to be very hard to see what happens anytime soon. As a result of all of that, there is going to be remarkable uncertainty and therefore remarkable volatility.
Well, it's interesting, Andrew. You talk about how the administration seems to be split. Obviously, Peter Navarro, Stephen Miller, Howard Lutnick, strongly in support of tariffs. You brought up Elon Musk, who has been grousing privately to people close to him how dangerous these tariffs are and what negative impact it's having on Tesla. I mean, he's beyond himself, according to my reporting. And you also have Scott Bessent clearly uncomfortable and also letting some people on Wall Street know how uncomfortable he is with the situation he was put in this weekend. But this morning he gets to go out, tell you, hey,
right,
this is all about doing the deal, which is what it was what he said from the very beginning. But of course, the interesting thing is, it doesn't really matter what any of those people think. Doesn't matter what any of those people say. Right. It's one person who's making these decisions, right?
It's one person, and that person, and we've talked about it so many times, I think ideologically ultimately does believe in tariffs, ultimately does believe that there should be a restructuring of the economy in a meaningful way. So as much as he may want to negotiate, I think it's very hard to believe that 6 months, a year from now, longer than that, there will not be tariffs or that somehow we'll get to zero.
Right.
I would imagine, given that he's already created this baseline of 10%, maybe that is a form of a tax, but both on the American public and on foreign countries across the board. And maybe that's a forever situation. The thing right now is that the business community just wants some certainty so they can figure out what they are supposed to do about this. Are they going to wait it out and try to see whether the courts block this, whether the Republicans lose in the midterms? What happens 4 years from now? I mean, that's the big question right now, because as long as they're not doing anything and they're paralyzed, it effectively means that you're going to have job creation problems, investment problems. Folks out in the public are going to say, am I going to go buy stuff? Am I going to make a big investment in a house or car or this or that? I mean, it just sort of puts everybody in a state of paralysis.
But, Andrew, where were these people over the past year? Forget the past year. Where have they been since 1987? People have known Donald Trump in New York for decades. This has always been. We played a clip earlier today. Yep. And I said, for all the disinformation that you hear about Donald Trump and all the disinformation coming from his quarters, from X, from wherever, what he said this morning, or what he said yesterday that we played this morning, strip it down. That is the essence of Donald Trump's ideology. When he says, I'm the only guy that will do this. I only have he believes he has a year, maybe 2 years to get things done. I mean, he believes that. He knows that he's standing alone on this island, believing he's the only one who will do this, because he is. And I know you're just flabbergasted because you deal with them every day, but we're just rolling our eyes at these billionaires from Wall Street that supported Donald Trump that are shocked
Well,
that gambling's going on
and the reason
in the restaurant.
And the reason that they're shocked is because, A, I don't think they spent enough time focused on his words over these last 30 years as it relates to tariffs. But there's another piece to this, which is that President Trump has always been focused on his, or at least historically, on his own approval, his own ratings, right? You know, what were the ratings of The Apprentice? Was he number one? In the first administration, you know, they would talk about the stock market as a measure of their success. And I think so many of the business community, members of the business community looked at that and effectively put blinders on to this other piece of the president, which is his interest, a genuine interest in tariffs and in fundamentally changing the narrative and structure of our global economy.
All right, CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin, thank you so much. We will be talking to you soon, keeping an eye on everything.